Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we have all kinds of fun stuff to talk about this week. And so if you have comments or questions, definitely put that in that comment section because we will follow along with that. But I think our fishing report is kind of what we are talking about tonight. So at the risk of just jumping in, I think this is all going to be all in one this evening.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a fishing report. It's kind of outside of our normal range, but yeah, it's kind of a fishing report and kind of like an experience, I guess.
Well, okay. And part of why it's a fishing report is because when you think about your average angler, at least at this time of the season and at least kind of the area where we are, and I know that's all very general in how I say that, but what I mean is that if we look out our window right now, we are still totally snow covered.
Yeah.
All of our grass and everything. Actually, it's kind of crazy. There's a big window here. You can't see that. I can't, right? But I think the thing is, if I try to go out into a local lake, there is no lake yet to go out into, but it's still not ice season, right? And so if we were looking for that fishing opportunity, we are going to have to travel. And so I think that there's a few different rivers that are open and all of that. But one of the things that we have always heard about is this power lining in Chicago. And so just one thing led to another and the opportunity came up, dare I say last second.
It was last second.
It's how it goes, right? It's like, you wait for good conditions and you just try your best. And so that's exactly what happened. And so I think, my parents live close enough that we can make this happen, right? So we stayed the nights at their house. So shout out to them for letting us stay there. Obviously,
so nice.
Obviously they would, right? But oh, look, they updated that little thing.
Yeah,
that
they updated
nice.
It
looks different. But I think the thing about it is that we were kind of taking a risk, and one of the other things that we never do is like city fish, right?
That's
urban
true.
fishing.
Urban fishing.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of times when I think of urban fishing, you think of, there's sometimes little ponds and stuff in the city, but sometimes they're designated like kids or people with disabilities only. They have designations like that. Are you laughing?
No,
that's true.
No,
that's true though. And so you got to be careful of regulations, but when you're in the city and there's a huge giant lakefront, I mean, that's a whole different ball game. And so, down in Chicago, they do this really unique thing called power lining.
Yeah.
And do we even know why it's called power lining? Is there a specific reason?
I guess we never asked, and we did a little bit of research, but I can only assume it's called power lining, Haley, because you use power to get your line out to the water. So yeah, it's kind of a unique thing to Chicago and Lake Michigan. As far as I know, I don't think any other areas do that. And we were chatting with some of the guys on the break wall, and yeah, you can fish the Lake Michigan shoreline from the northern Illinois border down to Chicago, I think, right?
You go too much farther than Chicago on the border and you get to Indiana. So, but that's the thing. And so let's start with this by saying, first of all, we are not experts and that we are so excited to talk about this. And we've only done this I was going to say once, but it was 2 days. So 1.5 of that counts, right?
Yeah.
But we learned a whole lot. And I think one of the other things that we did is we tried to watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos ahead of time because we didn't expect to gain a whole bunch from that. But, there's a few videos out there that give some of the history in this. And so we'll give like a really quick version.
Well, I'm just going to break in there quick. There isn't a whole lot of content on this. And I can see both sides of it. One, it's super unique, right? And so you would think that there would be a lot of people that have, stuff going on. I will say that it would be kind of like making a long fishing video of just sitting and watching tip ups, right? So like there's videos of people catching fish on tip ups, but not the act of, doing that. And so once you launch your setup out into the water.
Let's show people.
Okay.
Let's show a launch right away. Just like I know people are so excited. I'm so excited.
There we go. Okay, that's as good as I can do. Okay, so he has the weight in the tube with the line attached, with the rubber band attached at the guy's feet and the guy's feet that's holding the rod, and the line that's in the rod.
Okay, so we'll explain this more in a minute.
Yep.
Okay, rewind that one more time. Show the shoot off one more time. Oh,
Oh.
go back a little bit more. So there he is.
So you
pointing
see
out
the rubber
towards the
bands
lake,
here. Yep. And then
and
it's
he
all gone.
shoots it out.
And then he's
And as
the
this
line
line
is
goes out.
going out. And then it stopped.
Okay. Okay. So what is happening here, and that you're explaining this really, really super fast, right? But what happens is there is a fire extinguisher and there is a long copper tube. I think it can be any kind of metal. They say don't use like a PVC tube, right? You
Yeah,
see people out there, they're
definitely
doing
don't
that,
do
they're
that.
using in that. That is a safety hazard. I'm just what I've learned. This is what I'm passing on, right? And so it's this metal tube. And so the fire extinguisher, I don't even know if it's filled with the fire extinguisher material, right? But it is under
No, it's
pressure, and
just
that is the
CO2.
point. Is that is the pressurized,
Mhm.
because then what you do, and you had mentioned a weight, and that is, I guess, one end of the line. So they make a cylindrical weight, and so it fits right down into that tube,
Mhm.
and the weight is attached to all of this really stretchy rubber band material. It's very, very long. It's like very, very long. I guess I if we had an expert here, we'll bring Sodium next time.
I think they
But
were
there's-
talking about like, between 50 and 75 feet.
But I think it depends on how far
Right.
you're going to shoot, how
Mhm.
far you want to fish, all of these different variables. And so this rubber band, it is attached to that weight. It is they string it out onto. Can we just pull up the picture, but not the video? See, the shoreline. You think of shoreline as being
Let's
like
see.
rocky, as being nature, as being whatever.
Here's
That's a
the rubber
great
band right
example
here.
of it, right? Okay, but the shoreline, it is like a break wall. And in this case, the weather is great, and there's a little bit of a drop down from the break wall to the water, right? And so this rubber band is all strung out, and it's on this line, because when you do shoot this out, the weight goes very far and very fast. And so what's happening is that you get this rubber band all the way out there. The rubber band is attached to the line. So when you are seeing, stop scrolling. You're like so distracting me. when the rubber band is attached to the line and the line goes all the way out there, so then you can pull. Once that weight settles, you can wait a minute, right? And then you can pull it back in about to the rubber band, and then you can put on like your rig that you're fishing with, right? So you reel, that's why you have a stretchy band. You reel all of this right back in, you clip on your lines. And so we were talking about on the shore in Chicago, you can have up to 50 hooks. And so you don't put all of those, most people don't, as far as I am aware. You
That would
don't
be
put
a
all
mess.
of those, on one string. I think that depends on how you're fishing and what you're fishing for and how you like to set it up, right? That's personal preference there, but people put all kinds of different baits on the end of there, right? Whatever you can think of that. And so then there's also, I should mention, little bobbers, like at the beginning, at the end of your hook line. And so that's going to kind of indicate, well, I guess hold your baits up in the water even, because you're using a big bobber. I guess that's what you're doing.
Yeah, like a big musky bobber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this line does lead all the way back, and you have a little bell which attaches to like your bucket setup. And so
Let me see.
there you go. So there's a bucket set up. There's a bunch of the hooks that are wrapped around. And so that's kind of a funny example of that, right? But you get what I'm saying. And so with all those baits on there, and then, oh, there you go. Zoom in like a tiny bit. Can you zoom in? Yeah. And so you can even see the bell on there. And so when that bell rings, you know that there is a fish tugging on that line, right? And so that's why you compared it to open water tip ups, is I think what you said.
Mhm.
Is that right? And so it is really, really unique because you can set your lines, you can hang out, you can listen for the bells, you can kind of see when other people along the shoreline are catching fish. And it's a really unique experience.
Yeah, so I think this is a really great picture kind of explaining what Emily was just going through. So at this point in the process, this line has not been let out yet with the baits. This is the rubber band that's stretched, maybe 350 or 400 feet out into the water. Hey, Gene. So this rubber band is attached to that 1 pound weight that's way out in the water. They stretched it back and now it's hooked. This is ready to get clipped onto this leader with all these hooks. And then you let the rubber band go and it pulls all your baits out as you're baiting them. And then it just is connected to this. And then the line sits up here in the little holder, and then then you have the bell. So this is kind of that's kind of the gist of it right there.
Well, and Justin is saying in the comments, cool technical fishing. And so I guess that's a really great point. I almost wouldn't advocate for like doing this on your own, right? It's
No.
it's so funny because, we talk fishing all the time and we're always like, go out, go try it, do something new, like all these things. But this is not one of those things. And I don't know. I don't even know if people guide. I don't know. You have to get to know somebody who does this, right? But it is a really unique opportunity and it is very niche. And so I think of, around the US, there's quite a few places where they have unique opportunities. And isn't it up on the Detroit River and they have some really short fishing poles or jig rods that they do? We were talking to somebody one time. Yeah, I know. And so there's all kinds of unique things, and this just happens to be one of them. And so when I started talking, I guess in the beginning of the podcast, we're like, let's give a little bit of the history. And I think that this is where this comes back around a little bit, is because it is so niche. What people were trying to do is get their baits out there. When you look at Chicago, again, I'm not an expert and I haven't gone through map after map after map. But what I do know is that kind of around the city, it is a big, generally a flat, right? And so if you're fishing right in the breakwall, sometimes there's fish there, right? But sometimes you need to get your baits out there. And, being big water, there's a lot of different fish opportunities, right? So in this case, it's the coho that we were after.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly what's biting these, but there's brown trout out there. There's all kinds of different things. And that's what people are trying to get their baits out there for. So like I was saying, the history, they used to use, what do they call them? The trot lines.
Trolleys.
Yeah. And so like a very, very big high pole, and they would use it to like send lines out there. I guess I don't remember exactly how it worked.
So basically the trolley was the handheld invention prior to the power line. So what guys were doing is they were taking what essentially looked like a big snagging weight. It was a big chunk of lead with some hooks, and you can find anchors like that look like that now, but these were smaller. It could have been like a kayak anchor almost, and they would swing it, whip it out into the water as far as they can with the rubber band. They bring that back, they put it up to their pole, and then or not the rubber band, just a rope, and then they run the rope up to their tall pole like you were talking about. Then they have a trolley system that's attached to their baits, and it would be weighted, so it would go all the way down to your weight that was on the bottom, and then you would have your lines go out with that, just kind of like similar to what the rubber band would do. The thing with that is you couldn't get it out as far, and so then people have evolved from the trolley to something like this. Yeah. Super interesting.
Well, and what's funny is, it does, when you're describing it, it does sound very technical. It sounds almost like a little bit difficult just because it is unique.
There's a lot of moving parts.
It's not necessarily just your typical like rod and reel and all of that. And so it does seem a little bit intimidating, but it's funny because once you're all set up, once you're good to go, once you're out there fishing, like it kind of makes a lot of sense. And things really do kind of, dare I say, work out. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of it. That's why they're doing it, is that it does work out. But it's also interesting because, like we said, we're in the city. And so the number of people that are out there doing it. I mean, this one picture on your screen makes it look like this really gorgeous, empty fishing paradise, right? There's big fish out there and no other people, and that's just not the case, right? And so it's interesting because when you're able to shoot these baits off and see the bobbers and see the lines, first of all, you're able to kind of see where and how other people are fishing, maybe pick something up from there, what they're doing, how they're setting up. But it's interesting, you'll see like waves of fish come through. I guess I call them schools of fish, right? But the bites come in waves, then, is I guess why I say that way. So it's really, really unique to see so many people fishing together and like so far out.
Well, and earlier you'd mentioned like maybe finding somebody to do this with, and I think that was one of the things that I found very interesting. Throughout the weekend, we were standing on hey Chris.
Hey, yeah, we're talking about you.
Chris, chime in if we're misspeaking here, because you were with us.
Expert, yeah.
But so we were standing on this certain section of wall for most of the weekend, right? And there was, I bet we had like 100 people run past us just exercising in the morning. We had people just come out and hang out on the break wall and just like hang out, look at the lake, and then leave. We had people, we had tourists come by, and we were like cooking. These guys were like cooking lunch and stuff, and they were taking pictures of like our cookout, and they're taking pictures of the couple of fish that we got, and we got to share it with them, and they were from out of the country, so that was really cool. And I really think that like if you just walk down to a break wall and you said, if you were polite and you went up and asked and said, hey, what's going on here, like a lot of these guys are pretty cool about like sharing what they're doing, and
They might not give you all their secrets.
no,
but
not
that's not the
secrets,
point
but
either.
just give you the gist of how
Mhm.
things go down, and it's just a really cool, like Emily said, thing that's going on in the downtown of the city.
Well, and I guess with that being said, is when you do look across all the different people that are out there, one of the things that's interesting to me is almost the consistency in the setup.
Mhm.
And so I mean, I guess when you think about like your typical fishing, it's still just like a rod, a reel, some end tackle, yada yada, I guess, but it's interesting because the buckets, all of the setups, they all have bells, all of these different things are consistent along the line, right? I guess one of the things that we did find that was different along the way is the line that people were using on the spools.
Mhm.
And we saw like a little bit of everything,
Let
and
me
there was
see.
a lot of chatter the whole weekend about like what worked good, what didn't work very good, but it's funny because you were again comparing it to show some of those fish pictures. That's kind of funny.
Okay, we'll
The one
start
where I
that
almost
one.
dropped the fish. Oh yeah,
Oh,
look at you. That's a good one.
that's a nice one.
No, show them. Yeah, that's like a. Then I dropped him and I try to pick him up. They're just so squiggly. Yeah, look at that. They're just so squirmy.
There's Chris in the back laughing at him.
Oh yeah, look at me dropping it. Anyways, that's you get the point of all of that, right? I forgot what I was saying. But
I don't know.
just consistency, I think, in the setups and we were comparing it to tip up fishing, that the line
Yeah, the
has been
different line.
different.
That's why I was pulling this up. So, this is kind of our friend Lee here. He was part of the group down here. I was gonna see if I look backwards with the camera at all, because that was the one thing that we were having. Let's see if I can pause it quick. Right there, maybe a little bit before. But we were having trouble with how light the fish were biting. Sometimes we had a couple bites where it would really set the bell off, right? And what? Oh, so it would really set the bell off, and then a lot of times they were just picking our bait off. But if you can see right here, right in the corner, this is kind of like the fly line that
They
that
can't see
Lee
that.
was
If you're watching on
using.
your cell phone, that's like this
Okay.
big in your screen. That's so funny.
All right. Yeah.
But they were
So
using fly line
yeah.
at the point.
yeah, and some people were using like dark Dacron, and some people were there's all kinds of different stuff that they had on schools.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Chris, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks. As far as one of the things that we left, and we were like, we got to build one of these setups, and I think I have some research to do first, right, before I just go and wing it, because some fly line sucks. That's what Chris said. Well, I mean, but that's the thing, is like we saw all different kinds of options. There was some had pros and cons for everything, and because that's the thing, is we saw some that were like a braid line, but
Hmm.
again, what people are forgetting or don't forget is that we're in a city. And so this is a concrete slab that we're working on, right?
Mhm.
And so it is nice and flat, and generally flat. There was one hole, don't trip in the hole, right? But that's, the thing is that when you put your line out there, because your line, it will be okay, because we're talking about setting this up, but the other piece of this deal is when you catch a fish, right? And so you're reeling all of this line in, and if you are new at this and you suck at this, then you are piling up all your line like right there. But that's a problem, because then it's all going to get tangled up, right? When you bring those hooks in, when you bring the fish in, that's a problem. And so when people are good at this, and again, this is why you go with people who are experienced, because if you can reel in that fish but set out the line, in a nice way that it's set out and not overlapping and getting crazy, you're going to be a lot less likely to tangle, right? And so if you're using braid, though, that's going to be something that's going to catch and snag on the cement. And I don't think that's going to affect the integrity of the braid all that much, right? But
Mhm.
it does get like kind of knotty and ratty, and I guess it does degrade it over time. But something like the fly line, that didn't do that. But again, that probably floats a little bit more, and so I guess it depends on how you're fishing, what
Yeah, I
depending
mean,
what
a
you're
lot of
fishing
it, I
for.
think, is personal preference. I think one of the more important parts about this, because ultimately you just want your baits to be out a little further, right? And so, and you want to have and maybe not the distance, but it's more that you're covering more water, right? You can have we saw a setup that had 2 or 3 sets in between their floats, right, on one single line, and so that's a lot of hooks. That, to me, that seems like it would be a mess. But it was a big setup that one guy had. But I think one of the bigger things to point out in this is that it's almost a team activity, right? Because you have to have the guy that shoots the weight, you have to have the guy that holds the rod, you have to have a person to grab a net while the person that's pulling in a fish is like pulling in the fish, and then there's another person there to like kind of wrangle the line. So it's
Plus, the guy
always
there that's cooking the lunch.
so so it's like, you know, it's kind of like it's a group effort, especially when you do hook into a fish. And there was a whole bunch of stories that we were exposed to where there was like, we had one line that we had caught 2 fish on, but we had like like schools of coho would come through, and these guys are saying, yeah, you'd have like 3, 4, 5 on a line, and it's like that that's like that would be crazy. That would be too crazy. They'd be all over the place. That'd be crazy.
Speaking of all over the place, you could see all kinds of different. This is exactly what we're talking about. Is the back and forth of. But again, this is why you said that this is a team sport. Is that what
Yeah.
you call that? And I guess that's a crazy way to put that. But again, a perfect reason is because there's more than one way to do this, and that's so awesome. Yeah, somebody has to cook. That was awesome. Yeah, we ate so good out there. Oh my gosh. But that was actually so fun to see, because like I said, we were talking about the consistency in the setups, but that's one of the things that really differed. The other thing that really can differ is, the baits that people put on. And I don't know, I don't want to give up anybody's secret bait, but I don't know if we saw any really secret baits,
I
right?
don't. I
In this
think
case, might have been a
diversity was
secret
the
bait.
key here. I think there's a lot of. I mean, I think everybody has maybe a little bit of like what they like to use best or whatever. But I think that just having a little bit of everything, and especially our first couple shots that we put out, I saw night crawlers, I saw red worms, I saw minnows. There was just straight like
Jigs.
tinsel
Yeah.
lures, there was jigs, so I mean, I really think anything.
Minnows, hooks, glow beads,
Yeah.
not
Yep.
regular beads, not weights, not.
Pretty much anything that you can like put out there and have confidence in, I think you know really will help you be successful. And I think it's just recognizing, keeping track in your head, like, oh, that fish came on line number 4. That's one of those flies. Maybe I should switch it out, right? Or do something like that. So and I think another thing that these guys talked a lot about is matching the hatch. And we, in normal fishing, we talk a lot about that. But in this instance, like, it could mean the difference between like having like a 1 fish day or having like a limit day, and how fast that happens. So I think there's just a lot to pay attention in it, and it's just something that, for the short window that this is kind of a popular thing to do. You just have to go out there and do it. And if you've never done it before, just go try and hang out with some of these guys.
Just casually hang out on the break wall and just. Oh my gosh. I'm looking at the comment section, and Chris, you're cracking me up. As far as though you were talking about things to watch and all kinds of things going on, and one of the things that we were watching this weekend was the weather, because I guess whenever you're fishing, there's always a lot of talk about weather, and the conditions on Saturday when we were out there. So first of all, it is a weekend in the city, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just when we were able to get out, and that's when everybody gets out. um, but the other funny thing about that is this past Saturday was one of the first like really truly beautiful days. And we are from North, and so really we have not seen anything like that, right? But
That
even
was
down
hot.
there, they haven't seen very many days like that yet. And so I felt like Saturday it was one of everybody that was out. But because like we said, along with the nice weather, there was almost no breeze. Like it was a very calm, very beautiful day. And so for just general recreation, it was great for spring. I think it
Mhm.
really rejuvenated people. But as far as fishing out on the big water like that, sometimes to have a little bit of action on the water, a little bit of waves, stir things up, a cloud once in a while, just really goes a long way for that bite. And so we did see kind of some waves of fish throughout the day or some bite windows or whatever. But I think, that's the thing is the bite always falls no matter what you're fishing for. But
Mhm.
we spent all day like, oh, it would be cool if there was a breeze, just kind of casually wishing. And then we went out Sunday and our wish was fulfilled 20-fold. And the funny thing is, we were out there and well, I talked earlier about how the break wall, the water line was a little bit lower than the break wall itself.
I wonder if I can
When
get
there was
to your pictures.
I couldn't that's what I was going to say is I could not get a picture or a video of how drastic the weather changed, right? So the waves were crashing over the break walls and there was white caps and there was like spray everywhere. But I mean that's the interesting thing is like one minute we were sitting on that break wall and it was just we were hanging out and it did get a little bit sunny and it was
Hmm.
it was really nice. The next minute, the waves were, the wind was picking up and the waves were crashing right around. Or even actually when we I shouldn't laugh. When we first got there and we saw, oh, I'm watching Josh
Yeah,
pull up
you
videos. I'm getting distracted, but there was people
can't
who used
ever pull
wheel.
anything up to
I
the
almost
side.
said,
She's squirrel.
yeah, that's the problem. I was gonna say people use wheelbarrows. No, but it's their
Carts. The wagons.
wagons,
Yeah.
yeah. And there was like a whole wagon that was like almost thrown off the brake wall because the wind it just picked up. And that's the thing is like the conditions they were just kind of ever changing. And so that was a really unique thing to watch because again, like I said, whenever you're fishing, you watch that. But we normally fish smaller bodies of water, and that
Mhm.
just again it reacts different. So you just got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a crazy thing being on, this time of year too, is that you can you can experience almost every single direction of wind in a single day, not just like day to day, right? And being that this isn't just like a shoreline, a normal shoreline. This is like a hard edge break wall, and so when you do get wind straight into the wall, or even parallel to the wall, like it's the water. It doesn't take much for the water to start coming up, and that north and that east wind, like it it pushes. You're the furthest south that you can be pretty much on the lake, and so you're going to get the biggest waves. And so it is good to keep an eye. Make sure you look at the weather the morning of before you go out, because heaven
Even those
forbid you
specific wind
drive.
apps, windy
Yeah,
and yeah.
but heaven forbid you drive down there and you can't get out there. And if you do drive down there and it is too windy, don't go out there if the water is like way up on the wall, because you're gonna get sucked right in. And the buckets, like they're 5 gallon buckets. Like you put in a whole bucket of water. It's what, 40 pounds, but that's like those guys are saying like that the waves just suck it right in, and then your whole thing is gone. And so it's just not worth it.
But if there's somebody out there who scuba dives, they should go and collect all those buckets.
And at least one Mep Cyclops that I lost on a pole.
But you're bringing up actually another good point. Something that I wanted to mention is that if you do look up, I guess, power lining. So, again, you mentioned it's like open water tip ups. You set up the lines and you can have up to those 50 hooks. And so if you set up, you can also still cast on the side. right? Depending on, again, how many hooks that you have. And so whenever you look up power lining, there's not that many tips along with it on what to cast or how to target those fish. And I think one of the reasons is because, again, the thing about power lining is that you're fishing like out there. And I think to some extent, the fish are out there, but you never know. You never know. And that's why it's always worth bringing a rod and casting around. It's always worth that. And I think, again, you were a perfect example because you talked about how you did lose a bait, and that's just the nature of the game. Anywhere that you fish, there's going to be like trees or brush that goes down or underwater. You're going to get hooked or snagged somewhere sometime. Oh, bye, Chris. But that's the thing, is what you choose to throw out, I think is, I guess it was the hardest part for me anyways. And so you were talking about, using that Cyclops, you used all kinds of things, but it was ultimately like kind of a medium diving crankbait, and you did catch a fish.
Yeah, I was using I think a number 4 flicker shad, and just something that was just a general minnow thing. And it was, honestly, it was fairly anticlimactic. Like, I was just reeling in, and I went to, it was coming towards the wall, and then I went to just like reel up and go cast again, and the fish hit it like as it turned at the wall. And so basically I just like lifted the fish out of the water, just like out of this kind of muscle memory, and it was cool, right? And that's honestly, that was the first brown trout I've caught off of Lake Michigan. I know a lot of you have probably caught a lot. I don't fish Lake Michigan for brown trout that often, so but that's my first one out of the lake, so that was pretty fun. And it was kind of funny because it was super silver, and it was just almost the same color as the cohos for that matter. So it was just, everybody was like, "Oh, what is it?" And we finally figured out it was, we made a determination it was truly a brown trout. So that was pretty fun. But I think going back to having the multiple people fishing, a setup, if we were going to go do it with our own gear, I think that me personally, I would just run one bucket for the two of us. And then one person would still have all their lines available. So just because of the amount of coordination it takes to run a setup, I really don't.
How good we'd probably run too.
I really don't. I don't find that necessary. You have plenty of hooks out in the water. You're out there just hanging out, right? It's just like tip up fishing. If you could have 50 tip ups, that would be a lot of work. That would be way too much. I barely put out 3.
You need a whole set just for tip-ups. That would be ridiculous.
So it would just be a lot of work. 3 is fine, and I think that when we're running 6 tip-ups for ourselves, that is plenty of work. And this, in my mind, this is kind of similar. One bucket with a set of 25 or 30 hooks. That's plenty of stuff to get tangled up or hooked in my hand or lose something. So it's like, that there's plenty of stuff going on in that. And so being able to cast around, that's what we're talking about. I think it's definitely a viable option when you're doing this. Well, and when you're I was just thinking about it when you're casting around too, like it's Lake Michigan. So we were out there targeting cohos, right? And so that's what the main setups on the lines were. But someone on a Facebook group recently caught a really big whitefish, right? Or there's still stuff like smallmouth down there, and there's pike down there, and there's maybe perch. Different types of trout and the coho are in, and so like maybe perch. So there's all kinds of stuff that you could get, whether you're casting, so you could cast with a jig and a twister or something, or you can do the crankbait thing like I did. That was mostly because the spot we were in had a lot of rocks, and so when I got snagged, I just let some line out, and then it kind of floated out of the rocks, and I could get it back. That was pretty much it. I just didn't want to lose any more tackle.
It was a solid tip. Yeah. There was a lot of obstructions out there. And so one of the keys was to have a bait that was, dare I say, sticky enough to connect with the fish, but also that if you were connecting with the rocks, that you weren't going to lose every single bait out there, because,
right,
like I said, that would have been nuts. And I guess for me, I used a Comet minnow, and I felt like I should have used a size up, but it was actually in my benefit because it sat a little bit higher in the water column than I was hoping originally. But I think again that was in my benefit because there was a lot of the fish that were running pretty high in the water, at least one day. So
Yeah, we did see quite a few fish surface
yeah.
too, and like we did, we caught a handful of fish, but we were missing quite a few baits, and so this is one of those things that like it's not a super, you're not paying a whole lot of attention, but there's also a lot of room, a lot of give in your setup, and so you just have to constantly be checking it and checking your baits and like going over there and making sure that the little ding on your bell that you thought was a wave maybe could have been a fish, and just like go over there and check it. And sometimes when you move it, that triggers a bite. So then we had a couple times where somebody went and checked it, they let it go, and then it got bit right away, and then they were able to catch a fish. And so
or even while holding it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So those are just little things that we kind of observed while we were down there. Just a fun day, fun weekend.
Okay, maybe this is a funny thing to point out, but for anybody who goes fishing all the time, you have usually some level of love for the outdoors. And we did actually see, this is a funny thing to point out, a really unique bird.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we saw a long-tailed duck. I mean, it's not like when I looked it up, I thought it was like super rare. There's like
it was
a
just
fair amount. There's a fair amount of sightings on Lake Michigan, but it's long-tailed ducks originate in the Arctic, and then they come down, and they usually live on either coast, east or west coast. But there's a portion of them that get blown off course, or they're a small resident population that live on the Great Lakes, just because it's it's kind of like an ocean to them. They dive like 200 feet. They're kind of crazy little ducks. But it was kind of funny because I pointed it out. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool little duck, and took a few pictures. And then as I was doing some research on it, the Chicago Ornithological Society had posted the same morning that we were, that somebody
they saw a pair though.
And they saw a male, which has a really long tail feather. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and again, because it's just one of those things that when you're in a city, you don't necessarily expect to see nature, right? Things like that. But there was all kinds of birds out in the waterway, and all kinds of people passing by, like we were saying. And, it was really funny to factor in the fact that because when you're fishing a public park, a shoreline like that, there's times where the parking lots and the parks stay open, right? And so it's funny because sometimes when you go fishing up in the North Woods, whatever, you can get there anytime you want. 4 a.m. Sure, launch your boat. Right, no trouble for parking, right? But that's the thing, is in Chicago where we couldn't get there before 6 a.m. Because that's the rule. They won't let you in, and they don't like when you park in the street, right? They would tow you. I was going to say ticket you. It wouldn't even be that. They would tow you, right? And so that's a really funny thing to, I guess, plan your day around. Something that we weren't super used to, but it all did really come together. It was a really great experience. And I'm glad that the second day we found a cheaper parking lot, because otherwise, man, that would be too expensive for me.
Well, but we made the most of it too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the shoreline is close to different things to do. So like if if it's a
coffee shop,
well, and if you're having a slow bite, or you want to go get lunch, you can go get lunch. Otherwise, you can, like, you're having a slow bite and you're like, well, let's go do something. There's something there to go do. There's all kinds of what's the Bears stadiums right there, Soldier Field. There's all kinds of stuff to walk around and do, and so that's kind of the cool thing about that. Like, if we're having a bad day of fishing out on one of our lakes around here, there's not really anywhere we can walk to. Just got to grind it out.
See, yeah. See if the lake has a supper club.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Cross your fingers real hard for that. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think of other things about the weekend. I mean, I feel like we could talk about this forever, but hopefully it's going to be more experiences to come, more to share out. For now, we are back home. We're doing maple syrup. It is, when I say we, I mean mostly Josh.
Mostly.
It's been a pretty crazy week. But we are still not, we still cannot boat out this
No.
weekend. We are still
No,
like,
I got
under
a
enough
still got a
snow that-
3-foot snowbank in
Yeah.
front of my boat garage. So that's gonna be what I'm working on this weekend. I'll be boiling sap and trying to dig out a spot to get the boat out. We'll see how that works. But I don't think any fishing for us this weekend unless we find somewhere to go on land. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where are we gonna go on land? It's all frozen still, half frozen. That's
Half
the thing. We'll
frozen.
find out. But we'll see what next week's fishing report will hold, because that's gonna be really interesting for all of us to find out. Look at your face. But other than that, if you guys have questions or comments or things along the way, always reach out to us, or leave us your fishing report or open water report, because I guess I'm interested in how far I would have to go to find open water.
Oh, yeah. Next week we got a super fun show we do every spring. We're going to be talking with Wolf River Cam. Gary has the cams rocking and rolling, and if you don't know what the Wolf River Cam is,
Everybody knows what the Wolf
you
River
should-
Cam is, I hope.
you should look it up, because if you haven't looked
Tis
up
the
the
season.
Wolf River Cam, this is the season to do it. But Gary's going to fill us in on all the new stuff. And I know last year Gary started filming doing some live fishing expeditions, and that's always a fun thing to sit and watch, because who doesn't like seeing a walleye hit a bait underwater?
I just like to even see the suckers swim by. It just
Right?
cracks me up.
Yeah, it does.
You never know what'll be down there.
You never know. So yeah, next week we got Wolf River Cam.
And I guess I don't know if we plan too much farther than that, but at some point Easter comes up, so we'll
Mhm.
see. We'll do a little bit of traveling and fishing for that.
Yep.
But then otherwise we will be on to open water, and so we are really looking forward to that.
Yep.
And I guess with that, I am out of things for now.
Yep.
So thanks to everybody for joining us here this evening. And I guess looking forward to seeing you on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.